Hi guys, Mayflom here, and I'm working in my art journal today. I work in my art journal a lot, but I don't film it a lot just because it's usually just my experiments and my tests, and I don't usually share that. But I want to do a little more of that because I feel like I can share kind of the process and how I go about testing things and what works and what doesn't. So this page has been prepped with some gel medium. All prepping a page means, whether it's gel medium or gesso or whatever, you're just making a surface so that it's no longer porous. And what that means is when I put mediums on this, they'll set on top more than they will soak into the paper because there's that barrier, there's that layer of protection, okay? So I'm gonna start out with a waffle flower stamp set. And what I like to do, whether it's stamps or mediums or whatever, I like to play around here in my art journal, and I've got archival ink because archival ink will not react with the various color mediums I intend to use. Okay, and I'm just gonna stamp this little guy over here. And it's a little, it looks like it's a little, not bloody, but it bled a little bit, and it's not quite sharp and crisp. That's because I stamped it onto the gel medium, but I'm okay with that because that's exactly what I'm trying to test. I'm just going to heat set it a little bit, just make sure that that archival ink is nice and dry. And then I'm going to play around with coloring. What I like about doing this kind of thing is I'm able to really test different mediums, and I can go anything from, this is a watercolor pencil, and as you can see, if you just apply it, it just goes on really smooth, although you can see if there's spots where I don't have medium, where the paper was showing through, you're going to be able to tell because it's going to be a lot darker. There's a couple of spots. We're not worrying about that kind of detail here because this, again, this is the art journal. We play here, we have fun here, we do not stress in the art journal. That is my #1 rule. So things like watercolor pencils blend really beautifully here. You'll notice there's a dark spot that's not blending. That's the spot that did not have gel medium down. Things like distressed crayons work really well in this way. And again, you'll see where there's if there's a spot that got missed or didn't get covered, you'll know immediately. And look how, I mean, the gel medium, I can just completely wipe everything off. And that's my goal here, honestly, because I want to be able, the whole point of this exercise is I wanted to play with color. I wanted to experiment with what kinds of colors do I like, what kinds of colors do I not like. And by putting that gel medium down, I've created a surface where I can essentially start over and over and over, but with the one piece of paper. I've made it so that it's almost like in a dry erase board for my stamping, and it won't go on and on for infinity, certainly not, but it'll go on long enough that I can really get kind of a nice sense of what I like, what do I not like, you know, how do I really like, distress crayons is a great example of something I like to apply on here. If you're thinking, well, I don't have those, well, what do you have? Because there are lots of other mediums. One that comes to mind are gelatos. Here's some gelatos that I've got. I'll set them over to the side. So that's another example of a medium that on top of gel medium works really well because you can put a nice amount of color on. And again, same thing, you can just kind of blend it. You can blend it. If you add water in, it's going to dilute it, as you saw me do before. If you don't add water in these kinds of mediums and you're working in this way, well, if you don't add water, then it's just going to be rich color instead of having any, you know, anywhere where it's just like washing away like it was. Prima oil pastels. Now note that the Prima oil pastels are water soluble, and that's different. Not all mediums are the same. Just because they have the same name, it doesn't always even mean they act the same. So that's something to definitely keep in mind and remember and watch for. All of these mediums that I'm using are water soluble, I think, or at least the very minimum you'd call them water reactive, which means that if I put water on this, they will all react. They will all have a reaction, they will all blend more, and all of that kind of stuff. But because we're playing on a surface that has gel medium, again, gesso would have done the same thing. Because we're working on a prepared surface and not just raw paper, it's allowing for no water needed, just really rich color blending, which is something I especially love with regards to these kinds of colors and these kinds of projects. Honestly, I'm just having fun putting some colors down. And this little puppy dog that we're using as our example, it's Dog Days of Summer over on my blog. So I've been using dog images all week. And I'll put a link down below. But this little, this little guy, one of the things I really like about these waffle flower stamps is that some of them, like, you really wouldn't color the stamp. You color around the stamp. And I kind of like that opposite feel. I kind of like how that would be the opposite of normal, where you'd be coloring the stamp. And this is just, I'll be honest, this is just a lot of fun. And as you can see, I'm mixing and matching distress crayon, gelatos, oil pastels. I could get other mediums in here, but I'm not going to want to get ones that require water in here, only because if I do bring water into the party now, I'll show you what'll happen if I bring water into the party now. Look, I'm gonna make mud. I've got so many colors going, so many things going. Not totally mud, but the color blending won't be as nice, and I'm going to wipe away a lot of color because, again, remember this, by putting that surface down, it means that the color's not going to stick as much. And something like that's going to happen. But I can try again if I want different colors, if I want to try shapes, if I want to try some specific technique, if I want to just put like lots and lots of, I don't know, shapes of color and then blend the edges together. I could certainly do that. There's lots of options here, guys, and there's no wrong option. That's the thing about your art journal. You're free to play. You're free to explore. Have a good time with it. So that's just me and my art journal exploring here today. If you have requests, art journaling or otherwise, feel free to leave me a comment. I love hearing from you, but I also love knowing what you like seeing. I actually had some specific requests for stuff like this where, how do you test mediums? How are you going about that? So this is off of a specific request. I'd love to hear yours. And do keep in mind, of course, I always love answering your questions as well. Never a silly question to ask, so don't hesitate. Until next time, I hope you have some seriously wonderful craft time. Remember, check out the blog for lots more tips, tricks, links, all of that good stuff. I am going to go back into this art journal and just keep on having, oh my gosh, guys, this is so much fun. I can't recommend this enough. It's just so much fun to play with. All right, guys. Again, have a wonderful, wonderful creative week.